that needs your attention. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
The story of this film revolves around a world where ancient evil refuses to stay buried, and the spiritual battles fought behind closed doors finally come into the light. The movie builds its foundation around a character inspired by real life. Exorcists, focusing particularly on the intense, unsettling, and deeply psychological conflicts that priests face when confronting a force that doesn't just threaten a person, but the very structure of faith itself. As the film opens, it creates an atmosphere that blends dread with curiosity, showing how the church keeps many secrets locked away not to hide weakness, but to protect humanity from truths that could break them. This sets the tone for a story full of dark corridors, forgotten case files, and unexplained supernatural incidents that have been silenced for decades. As the movie progresses, the central priest figure emerges not as a typical quiet saint, but as a bold, flawed, sharp-witted personality who carries an unusual confidence into every case he takes. His methods aren't gentle, and his attitude doesn't match the rigid, traditional expectations of his role, yet he remains deeply committed to confronting evil wherever it shows itself. Over time, he becomes known within the church as someone willing to go places others won't, someone who sees patterns that others ignore, and someone who refuses to let bureaucracy become an excuse for inaction. Rumors follow him everywhere, some calling him brilliant, others calling him reckless, but the undeniable truth is that wherever he goes, the darkness reacts to him. The main storyline gains momentum when he is assigned a case involving a young boy whose behavior has spiraled into territory far beyond ordinary medical explanations. What starts as a call for help becomes a full-scale supernatural crisis when the priest realizes that the force inside the boy is not only powerful, but disturbingly familiar. It carries knowledge that no demon should possess, speaking to the priest as if it had been waiting specifically for him. This creates psychological tension unlike anything he has faced before, forcing him to revisit memories, failures, and past exorcisms that he once believed were resolved. Through this connection, the film explores an unspoken truth. Evil doesn't simply jump from host to host. It follows patterns, forms vendettas, and holds on to grudges. As the investigation deepens, the priest uncovers a hidden layer of history buried beneath the church's recorded archives. Old texts, sealed reports, and testimonies from long silenced witnesses suggest that this particular entity has interfered with humanity across multiple centuries. Instead of possessing random individuals, it has targeted people connected to important events, steering the outcomes of conflicts, influencing the fall of ancient institutions, and manipulating those in positions of power. For the priest, this transforms the exorcism into more than just a rescue mission. It becomes a journey into the forgotten corners of religious history, revealing that the church has been fighting the same adversary repeatedly throughout time, sometimes knowingly and sometimes without realizing the true connection. As the film's tension escalates, the priest must work with local clergy who are inexperienced and terrified. These supporting characters bring an emotional weight to the story, highlighting how fear can paralyze even those who believe they are spiritually prepared. Their confusion and hesitation contrast with the priest's blunt confidence, showing the difference between textbook knowledge and lived experience. Through these interactions, the film also shows how the church itself struggles internally, some wanting to prioritize caution and procedure, while others insist that immediate action is the only way to prevent greater harm. The supernatural activity in the house intensifies rapidly. Objects move violently, voices echo through empty rooms, and shadows twist into unnatural forms. But what makes the situation even more terrifying is how personal the demon's attacks become. It begins revealing secrets about the priest's past mistakes, moments of doubt, and unresolved trauma. This psychological warfare is one of the film's most gripping aspects, showing that the greatest threat isn't always physical harm, but the emotional wounds that can be reopened with a single whisper. The demon uses these memories as weapons, trying to weaken the priest's resolve and make him question his purpose. In scenes that builds suspense slowly. The boy's behavior escalates to extremes no human body should physically withstand. Yet each violent manifestation reveals clues about the demon's identity and its intentions. The priest begins piecing together fragments of ancient history, realizing that this spirit was once connected to a catastrophic event that nearly altered the path of religious development. Its goal now is not just possession, but to expose secrets that could shatter faith across the world. This narrative twist raises the stakes far beyond a single exorcism, turning the story into a battle over spiritual truth itself. Throughout the movie, the priest faces pushback from higher authorities within the church. Some fear that confronting this entity could expose parts of the church's history that were deliberately concealed for the sake of global stability. These political conflicts create additional layers of drama balancing truth against protection, tradition against necessity, and obedience against moral responsibility. In many moments, the priest finds himself alone, fighting not only demons but also institutional resistance. Yet his perseverance remains unshaken, fueled by a deep understanding that turning away from evil only allows it to grow stronger. When the final phase of the exorcism begins, the film unleashes its most intense visuals and emotional beats. The room becomes a battleground where spiritual and physical forces collide. The priest must confront not only the demon but also his own past, acknowledging the stakes and forgiving himself for moments he could never change. This emotional breakthrough weakens the demon's psychological hold, allowing the priest to shift the balance of power. With renewed strength, he commands the demon to reveal its true nature, exposing the full extent of its centuries-long manipulation. In a climactic revelation, the priest uncovers evidence that the demon had been influencing events across various eras, embedding itself within systems of authority whenever possible. It had caused chaos under the guise of human decisions, proving that not every historical tragedy originates from human nature alone. This revelation changes the priest's understanding of evil, showing that spiritual corruption can intertwine with politics, war, and societal collapse. This deeper layer makes the film more than just a horror story. It becomes a commentary on how unseen forces shape human destiny. As the exorcism reaches its peak, the demon's physical manifestations become overwhelming. The boy's body contorts in unnatural ways, voices overlap, and the environment itself seems to reject the presence of sacred symbols. Yet the priest stands his ground, using every ounce of strength, faith, and experience he has gained over years of confronting evil. In the final moments, after a battle that pushes him to the limits of exhaustion, he manages to drive the entity out, freeing the boy and restoring peace to the household. But victory comes at a cost. Every encounter with darkness leaves a mark, and he knows this won't be the last time he faces such a threat. In the aftermath, the priest discovers new files hinting that similar demonic patterns have appeared worldwide. The entity he confronted may have been driven out, but its influence remains scattered across places where the church has records of unexplained spiritual incidents. This sets up the possibility of future investigations, broader conspiracies, and deeper supernatural mysteries. The priest realizes that his mission is far from over. Instead, he has only scratched the surface of an ancient war that stretches across continents and generations. The movie wraps up by showing the priest preparing for his next assignment, carrying with him the knowledge that humanity remains vulnerable to forces most people cannot comprehend. Yet he maintains a level of courage rooted not in perfection, but in resilience. He understands that fear is natural, doubt is unavoidable, and mistakes are inevitable, but giving up is never an option. His work continues not for recognition but because someone must stand at the edge of the darkness, refusing to let it advance unchecked. Overall, the film blends supernatural horror with historical mystery, psychological conflict, and spiritual warfare. It presents a world where every exorcism is a small piece of a much larger puzzle, and every demon carries a story connected to human history. Through its intense atmosphere, emotional depth, and powerful character arcs, it creates a narrative that stays with the viewer long after the credits roll. The central priest becomes a symbol of persistence, showing that even in the face of overwhelming evil, Courage and conviction can hold the line between humanity and the darkness trying to consume it. Consume it.